As of June 15th, if you've been out looking for a home at an open house, you may have noticed some changes from agents talking to you about some new forms. They may be quite overwhelming and intimidating. So we're here to talk today about what these new forms are, why they're here, and just take a little bit of that edge off of these overwhelming forms that agents are flinging at you as you're walking in the door. Let's talk first of all about what things were like in real estate prior to June 15th. So prior to June 15th in British Columbia, agents were allowed to operate under what was called limited dual agency.
Correct. Limited dual agency, one example would be if as a listing agent, so someone that had a sign for sale for a home in a certain area, they were representing the seller, everybody's clear, they know who the agent is representing the seller. What was a little less clear is that if there was a buyer out there floating around that was not at that time working with an agent on record, they could actually choose the listing agent to also represent them, thinking perhaps that maybe the listing agent had, the edge, knowing the property a little bit better. But like coaching two sides of the Super Bowl, two teams in the Super Bowl, wasn't without problems. So as of June 15th, we've got some new rules that are basically making that no longer kosher.
Yeah, the Office of the Superintendent of Real Estate in British Columbia has determined that limited dual agency is not in the best interest of the general public and banned that for agents across British Columbia. Now, what you're left with as a buyer walking into a home that you're potentially wanting to purchase are two types of agency. One is designated agency, and the other is being an unrepresented party. Right?
Every time you hear the word agency, think of it as relationship. The type of relationship. Are we dating? Are we just seeing each other? Are we friends with benefits? Like what are we to each other?
Exactly.
Just keep that in the back of your mind when you're thinking agency.
Designated agency means that the agent that you are working with owes you a fiduciary duty, has to keep your privacy, cannot disclose anything about you or your situation unless you give them permission to anybody else.
So as the listing agent, I already have designated agency with my seller. What does this mean for you as a buyer? Well, it means that you should really go out and find yourself a great agent. There are so many agents out there to work with. And as a buyer, it costs you nothing, right? It costs you nothing to go and find an agent to work with you in helping you find that perfect home for yourself. The other type of agency is being an unrepresented party. And maybe, Des, you can speak to what being an unrepresented party is and why it is so dangerous to do that as a buyer coming in looking to purchase a home.
Yeah, it's I liken it a lot to being unrepresented in court, for example. Most people would think it's probably smart to talk to a lawyer before showing up in court or have your own representative. If you decide you want to go ahead on a purchase of a property at this point and be unrepresented, you have to go in it with your eyes open and realize that the agent representing the seller is 100% on the side of the seller. That is their first and foremost responsibility, to make sure that seller maximizes the sale price of their home. And if that means you're sharing any personal information with that agent, you have to be aware that they owe you nothing. They can take that information and use it essentially against you. Right?
Yeah. If you tell them that you're in the middle of a divorce, they can share that information. You might not want everybody to know that.
Well, actually, they have a duty of disclosure under the contract that they've signed with the seller to disclose that information.
To share all information with their seller.
What this means for any buyer walking into a home, whether you want to be purchasing it or not, you're going to be shopping around for a home, is to keep your personal information to yourself. But more importantly, to have an agent that you're working with. They will hopefully have coached you to not give away any of your personal information and to ask them any questions about that home that you may have after you've viewed it. The forms that we were working with previously were a working with a realtor form. That form outlined the various types of agency that you could have with an agent. The new form is called
the Disclosure of Representation in Trading Services.
It's a mouthful.
But we call it DORTS for short.
Disclosure of Representation in Trading Services. It's important to note that this form is simply a disclosure form. It's not a contract. It's just like the working with a realtor form. It's simply a disclosure form informing you of the types of agency that you can have with a real estate agent. If you walk into any open house, they can provide you with any of the factual information about that property. You can ask them any of the facts about that property, the neighborhood, schools, any of that sort of.
You can ask them anything, but they can only tell you that.
Yeah, just the facts, man.
Yeah, just the facts, basically. So all of your personal and private information you're going to want to keep to yourself. As a buyer, why would you want to be out shopping for a home without an agent?
You wouldn't. Like flat out, I wouldn't do it. I am an agent and I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And there's a number of reasons for that. For one, it's really easy to be human on this planet as people, and you fall in love with something. You just go, oh my God, it's exactly what we're looking for. It's beautiful. It's pretty. You may not be walking in with eyes wide open. You want somebody that's got your best interest at heart, actually walking you through the transaction and helping you with coming up with the right price, doing the research, all those things, and that really knows the neighborhood. I wouldn't go shopping without an agent, and I don't know why my clients who have even less experience in real estate would ever. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest impacts that the new rules are going to have on buyers after June 15th is the fact that many buyers out there will be working with several different realtors, right? You've all done it. Come on. So you have several different agents that you may have met at different open houses, or you've got a friend who's an agent, and
They're sending stuff.
you have these various agents looking for you on your behalf for a particular home that you may be interested in. Because of these new rules now, as of June 15th, that's no longer going to be allowed. So any agent is going to now contact you and say, I know we've been loosely working together, you had me sending you some stuff, but because of these new rules, I need to send you these disclosure forms. And again, remember, they're just disclosure forms. But if you're going to continue working with that agent, you as the buyer now need to make a choice, right?
You've gone now from
Back to the
seeing
relationship
each other
scenario.
or seeing multiple people to locking that down.
You got to lock it down.
Yeah,
You got to put a
lock
ring on it. You got to make a decision as to which agent you're going to work with, because now any of these agents that you've been sort of loosely working with they're all going to be contacting you and saying, we have these new forms, we have these new rules, I need you to be aware of this. Are we working together or not?
Right.
It's fantastic because it forces buyers out there to make a decision to work with one agent. If you know you're working with someone exclusively, you're going to give them your undivided attention.
100%.
You're going to work 110% for them to help them find that home. Whereas if you're working with someone who you get the sense might be working with a few other agents, you may not be inclined to devote as much time or energy.
Relationships are a two-way street. We all know that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Pick one person, know who your point person is, work with them. And if it's not working, you can always change. So don't feel like you're stuck with the wrong person, which is why potentially you might be stuck with the wrong person, which is why you don't want to make a decision. It doesn't work like that. I say try it out, work hard together, and then at that point make a decision as to whether or not it's working for you.
Under these new rules, what does this mean for sellers?
Well, sellers are in a slightly different situation now than they were in the past. One of the biggest differences in the oldie days was that essentially sellers could share their information with 2 or 3 potential listing agents that they were thinking about working with, and give as much information about the house and personal side of their situation as they could, so that those 3 agents could potentially go out and come back with a market price. Things have changed. So my best advice for sellers would be keep your personal information private and just speak to the facts. You have to make a decision on who you're interested in working with down the road in terms of marketing your home and selling your home before you can even really start discussing pricing.
And it's important to note that we're just the messengers. We didn't make up these rules. These rules are awkward for everybody, but we have to operate under them. So it's our job to educate both buyers and sellers as to how they can best navigate these new rules along with us. It's prudent advice for whether you're a buyer or a seller when you're speaking with an agent to simply talk about the facts and keep all personal information to yourself. As a seller now, what's important for you to understand is, sure, you can interview those 3 different agents, and that is still what you need to be doing. It's just that you need to adjust what you're saying to each of those agents until you actually make a decision on who you want to use. And it's an adjustment for us tremendously. Trust us, because it's in our nature to simply want to engage with the public as they come in and talk to them and find out about them, because we're problem solvers, right? That's what we do. So before June 15th at open houses,
I was going to tell you.
we would talk to you, find out about your situations and help to solve problems. That's changed.
It's a radical personality adjustment for me, because I'm so curious, and I'm talkative, and I always want to know about people, and I really like meeting people and talking to them. And now it's pretty funny for me to have to say, I'm Jacquie, and that's it.
To be fair, most agents were operating under 99% of this for the last, I don't know how many years of real estate. But what's been clear in the last little while is that not all the public understands what their agents actually can offer them, whether they're a buyer or a seller. And not much of the public understands what the duties of the agents are to their clients when they're representing buyers and sellers. So I think it's really great that with these new forms and everything else that goes along with it, and those conversations that we're having, we're clearing up a lot of misunderstanding out there.
Yeah, I think the whole goal with all of these new rules and the forms is to have much more clarity and transparency in exactly what relationship you have with an agent, whether you're a buyer or a seller. That's simply all it is. It is a little confusing at first, and it's a little overwhelming when you're presented with all of these forms. And that's why we're making this video, to help you guys understand.
We should make a video about this.
We should. So we hope that we've been able to illuminate for you a little bit these changes. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great day.